Time to go to, we're starting Tosfos, Pesachim the Nalcham and Alaf, Iyatar Rashai Latir Mifneim. Alright, so I'm going to go through Tosfos factually, just like you guys did. So follow along. This will be great. It'll be a chazara because you guys are Chana, except for Tamir. What? So Tosfos starts like this. Tosfos says Tema. Okay. Now remember, what's the principle here? The principle is that if there's a minhag, okay, that everybody knows. Or let me take a step back. A minhag that the Hamon creates. Okay, not through a chacham, not a gzeira, none of those kind of things. The people come up with this minhag, and in coming up with the minhag, they derive it as follows. They know for a fact that this thing is mutter, and yet they're choosing to be noeg iser. In such a situation, do you have the right to act against that minhag? Can you matir it in front of them? Meaning, right. So the Gemara says no. You cannot openly.
Those are two things, though. One is to spite, and one is like to spite.
Okay, let me clarify that. If I go to a town where the minhag is not to do malacha on Erev Yom Kippur, and I do malacha on Erev Yom Kippur, so that is matir bifneim. Right? I'm now saying what you think is asar, I hold as mutter. So I'm being matir in front of them. Right? I have no right to do that.
In front of them. When you say earlier, you mean in their place, or
if I do it publicly. Like let's say I go to the market and I start doing malacha.
What about privately in front of someone? Is that the name?
That's Tosfos. You get Tosfos. Right now, that's how you would interpret it. So Tosfos says Tema, Im Kain Hayach Hitir Rebbe Beishan the Parakama Dechulin. Now I told you not to look at that case, but just to see what that case is. So there was a case by this vegetable, if I remember correctly, that it's in Chulin Vavam Avez Al Shel Yerek. And they didn't eat it. And Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, he said it's mutter to eat it. Okay? Now what does it sound like?
Right.
What does that sound like?
Matir b'fneim.
Right, it's matir b'fneim. They had a minhag. It sounds like they had a minhag to be noeg isser in something, and he went ahead and said he undermined their minhag. Right? So Tosfos says v'tiratz Rabbeinu Nisim the Megillah Starim the high dvarim hamutarim v'acherim nagamen isser. What does that mean? What does it mean that they know the thing is mutter, but they're choosing to relate to it as asr? Hainu, I'm sorry. Hainu sheyodim shehem mutarim, v'hem rotzum lahachmer al atzman. Right. So what does that mean? It means I know that this thing is mutter. Let's use our case of the rice dough. Okay. So in the case of the rice dough, what's the case? They know 100%. That the dough that they separate, the little piece of rice dough they separate from the bigger piece of rice dough, it's not really challah. They know it's perfectly mutter. And what are they choosing to do? They're choosing to treat it as if it's asr. It says v'chei mashma, right? Lishna dvarim hamutarim, and that's what it means when it says dvarim hamutarim. Okay, meaning they know. What does dvarim hamutarim mean? It means they know that this thing is mutter. They know it's permitted. Aval devarim shenoagen machmas tos. But let's say they're noeg on something because of a mistake. And what's the mistake? Shesvurim shuasar v'hu mutter. So what? Now let's apply it to the rice dough case. Where would it be a minhag tos? Where is it a mistaken minhag? Where they say, oh, this rice dough, right? The that which I take away from the rice dough is challah. That's what they thought. You understand? That's what they thought all along. They thought that it is usher. The same way it's usher by chalas dagan, chalas chitan sora, so too it's usher by rice, when in fact it really is mutter. That's minhag tos. So in such a situation like that, okay, yachol lahatir b'fneim. Yachol, not you have to, okay, but you have the right to. I'm not bound by such a minhag. So I can go into the city and I can say, I don't have to listen to what you're doing. I'll eat the rice. The rice dough that I'm mafresh, I'm going to treat it as if it's mutter. There's no problem with that whatsoever. So just one step. So in how they derive the minhag, develop the minhag, is critical in determining whether it's to be followed or not. Whether you have to. Well, I shouldn't say that. Whether you have the right to undermine it or not. How they develop the minhag plays a critical role in whether you have the right to undermine it or not. Is that clear?
How do they what?
Yeah.
So Tosfos says, one second. V'chei mashma hedge Yerushalmi. The imtom. Okay, so we'll do like Gemara Yerushalmi. It's in there sometime down the road. Okay, so Tosfos says imtomar imkain amai amar dilma asi lafrushi mina patar alachiyav kevan di yadishu patar. But one second. Now what is he saying? He's saying like this. He's saying, well then why do you have a chashash in general? Why do you have a concern? A concern. Why do you have a concern that maybe they're going to go ahead and make this further mistake of
Why
doing
don't
what?
you have the fear they'll...
Why don't you have that concern?
Right.
Right? That was a question we asked before. Right? In other words, no, I shouldn't say that. Why does the Gemara even express this as a concern? The Gemara says why would you think you can matter the minhag? Right? Remember Rav Ashi? Why do you think you could matter it? Because we're concerned that what are they going to do? They're going to end up being mafresh orez on chita, which you can't do. Right? So why is it? The question is, why does the Gemara even present this as a concern? What's Tosfos really asking? He's saying that, well, since these people are clearly intelligent people, because what do? When they created the minhag, how did they create the minhag?
In the right way.
In the right way. So what are you worried about?
Right.
You shouldn't be worried about this. You understand? If the very minhag emerged through the right process, so then you don't have to worry about them being committing some other halachic violation because of the minhag.
It's just ironic that.
So what's Tosfos' answer? Tosfos' answer is no. Meaning that it's true the minhag itself was derived through appropriate means, but it doesn't mean everybody knows exactly how to relate to it. I mean, think about this. I mean, let's just put it in, again, I'll bring up a practical case, okay? But, actually, no, maybe I won't. You can say this. You can say, let's say it's a minhag not to work on Erev Pesach. So, you'll say the first door, let's say the first people who did it, they understood that really it's mutter, but we're going to be no agisser. But how do you know other people will understand that? Maybe other people will see that nobody's doing malach on Erev Pesach, and they'll conclude, what? You can't.
It's chosen. Yeah.
Right, so those dumb people, so to speak, are the same people who are going to end up, messing up this pater chiyuv thing. Okay? You'll see what Tosfos is keen, when we define this, you'll see Tosfos is heading on a very important point. Okay? That's step 2. Okay? Step 3. Tosfos says, Im Tomar, Demasha Dafka B'nei Medina B'kusai in Rosh Lahatir. Maybe you'll say that it seems like from the Gemara that it's only limited, the restriction in undermining the minhag only applies when you're dealing with Amaratzim. Okay, but if you do it in front of a chacham, bifnei chachamim, o shelo bifneim, or if it's in private, mutter. Okay, but the Gemara says, so that's the implication. The implication from the Gemara is, why does the Gemara say only in front of these people? Right? To tell you that it wouldn't be a problem if you were alone, or if it's in front of Chachamim. Right? That's the implication from the Gemara. The fact that the Gemara says you can't matter it in front of Kusai, that would exclude Chachamim or by yourself. Clear? So it says, Vamai. Right? So it says, Vahatna, notes in the Lav Chomer Makam, Shatzim Sham, Ushahalach Sham. Okay, so what's the kasha? What's that kasha? Up to this point, Tosfos is saying you would derive from the Gemara, you would deduce from the Gemara, clearly, that when it comes to minhag, right, when it comes to being mater minhag, meaning me being noag against the minhag, right, so I'm allowed to do that in front of Chachamim. Because the Gemara only says I can't do it in front of Kusai. But you have a big problem. What does the Mishnah say? But what does the Mishnah say? He quotes the Mishnah. What does the Mishnah say? The Mishnah says, Nosen alav chomer makam shatzim shamu shahalach hasham. What does that mean? Nostin.
We forgot Chomer Malcolm. Now we remember.
More than that, you almost got it. More than that. Whereas Tosfos' question is a beautiful question. The Mishnah doesn't qualify Chacham, Kusai, this, that. The Mishnah says if I go from Miami to New York, right? I'm going to go by the Chumrah of Miami, or I'm going to go by the Chumrah of New York. Doesn't matter. It's irrelevant to Chacham there or not. I'm bound by the minhag, right? So now you have a problem. The Gemara implies it's only in front of Kusai that I can't do this, but yet I would be able to in front of a Chacham. But that's not what the Mishnah says. The Mishnah says it doesn't matter if it's in front of a Chacham or not. The Mishnah says I'm bound by the minhag of Makam. Let's say it's Chomer Makam. Let's make it easy. Let's say I go to a city where you can't do Malacha on Erev Pesach. I'm bound by that. Period. I cannot do Malacha on Erev Pesach. Right? Doesn't matter who I'm in front of. Okay?
Yeah.
Is that clear? Okay, so Tosfos says, how do you answer that? So Tosfos says, V'omari, Dimasnisin Iri b'minach chashuv, Shenhigo al pi talmid chacham. So now Tosfos, you accuse me, we have 3 types of minhag. 3 types of minhag. So Tosfos says, what's a minhag? It's a minhag that's a minhag chashuv. What's a minhag chashuv? So Tosfos says, minhag chashuv, Shenhigo al pi talmid chacham. Okay? It's only through a Talmid Chacham. Hachamari shenagu b'nei Medina ma'atzmam. But our case here is where the people themselves create the minhag. One more step.
What allows me?
So now you have a problem. Okay, now you have one more problem. So,
is that the case?
Okay, so now mistapek. So now the is unsure about something. Minhag she'eno chashuv. Okay, now you got to follow this. This is a little tricky. Okay, so this is a great case. And you can't see just as a methodology note. You can't appreciate the re-suffix without defining everything beforehand first. You can't not appreciate why he's in doubt at this point. I'll tell you factually what it is, but you really want to appreciate it until we start going back and going step by step svara how Tosfos is working. No, you got to know the facts though. You got to know the facts. Should know the facts. You got to know the facts. So the Re says like this. The Re says he's not sure about something by a minhag that's not chashuv. Okay, so 1 second. We're going back to the okay minhag. Okay. The okay minhag that the Hamon came up with it, but it's okay how they did it. So he has a question. He says, now we know that according to Tosfos, it's mutter to be noeg against the minhag in front of Talmid Chacham. So let's pick again. Let's pick our case of malacha on Erev Pesach. So if I'm in front of Rabbi X, it seems like I have every right in the world to do malacha on Erev Pesach. Okay. Question is, what does that mean? So Tosfos says, maybe you'll say like this.
That's in the case.
If you're in front of Talmid, what does it mean if they Talmid Chacham? So he says, maybe you'll say this. Maybe you'll say, he says, now the question is, when you say I can matir in front of Talmid Chacham, right? Im yochol lahatir lahem. Does that therefore mean that the Talmid Chacham can matir it for them? What does that mean? What does that mean? Okay. So can the mashma come on? V'lo ratzu lomar lahem mutarim atem mishum de'bnei Hamedina chashav lehu kekusai. Aval talmidim mashmash hayu omrim mutarin atem. So he's saying there's two. So the first possibility is like this. The question is, when you say I can't matir it, so we know one thing. I cannot act against the minhag of the makom in front of the Bnei Medina, but I can act against the minhag in front of the Talmid Chacham. Now the question is, can the Talmid Chacham
determine Medina?
No, can the Talmid Chacham can't matir it in front of the Bnei Medina, but can he matir it for his Talmidim? Because what are the Talmidim? Well, that's going to be the question. Are they Bnei Medina or not? So one possibility is that you could say that mutar atem, meaning you Talmidim, you can go against the minhag. That's one possibility. O dilma yochol lahatir la'atzmo b'fneim, or no, maybe the Chacham can matir it for himself in front of his Talmidim. Aval lahem einu yochol lahatir, but he can't matir it for his Talmidim.
Hamon or Hapidon?
The Hamon. The Halchi Kamar lo ratza lomar lahem mutarim atem. Okay, and that's what it means. He didn't want to tell them it's mutter for you. Umashehech martem lo machmas iser el machmas minhag shtus. The Talmidim ayamatir la'atzmo b'fneim aval lo lahem. But he would matir for himself in front of his Talmidim. So that's the question. The question is when we say we have a tension. Or sort of. We have two things. One thing is that I can't matir in front of the Kusai. The other thing is I can matir in front of the Chacham. Now the question is,
maybe you can't.
In this case, I cannot matir in front of the Kusai, but I can matir in front of the Chacham. A Kusai, yeah, it's okay minhag. Okay minhag. I cannot matir in front of the Kusai. I can't undermine it, but I can in front of the Talmid Chacham. Now the question is. So say it again. So what's your question?
Why can you not matir minhag in front of the Hamon by an okay minhag?
Okay, so the question: Why are you unable to matir minhag that was developed through the Hamon? Okay, but it's okay.
Right.
All right. Why can't you do that? Okay, that's a good question. Now let's go even more basic than that. Okay, what's even more basic?
Why does it matter how it's derived?
Well, I mean, look what I'm saying. That's another good question. Why do we care how it's derived?
It doesn't matter the key mechanism
right.
of moving should be whether it's mutter or not. That should be the thing.
What do you mean when it's mutter? Why would it matter if it's mutter? That's the question I want to answer. What makes what they did binding?
You can say whatever you want. You can make as many poses as you want.
What makes what they did binding? Now, there's two approaches you could take. Okay, you could try to put minhag in a positive way, or you could put it, which I don't think is the way to do it, or you could do it in the way,
clearly.
Where's that bias come from?
What?
Where's the bias for?
Why I wouldn't say that?
Yeah.
Because you'll see in a second. But how would you give it a positive spin? Okay. What would you say?
You want to preserve this.
When these people decide to go ahead and make this minhag.
You want
to. What are they doing? Stay away from Isser. Okay. Now, okay, good. They want to stay away from Isser. Okay. So what does that tell us?
It's a good one.
Tell us what they're from.
It sounds like a good.
The positive spin on it, you could say, is that what makes it nice is because they're saying that they're trying to enhance their allegiance to the Allah.
Okay.
You'll see why in a second. But you could argue that maybe what you'll say is that what's the idea of minhag? The idea of minhag is that they're trying to enhance their allegiance to the halachic system. That's what they're trying to do. They're saying, listen, we want to be careful about challah, for example, okay? And to be more careful, we decided that we're gonna be noeg isser here. They know it's mutter. They know it's mutter, but they're noeg isser because in their framework, this will allow us a greater observance of the mitzvahs. It's like a general idea in shmiras and mitzvahs. It's not the specific challah per se. Rather, it just shows that in general they want to what do you call it? Adhere to mitzvahs in the right way.
So
now,
is it halakhic or philosophic?
Well, hold on one second. I'll answer in a second. But clearly, that couldn't work by Tos, right? How could that never emerge because if it's a Tos? It's just simple logic. In other words, if they think it's really usher,
you have no idea what the heck you're trying to protect from.
Right, so it can never be an enhancement of the Shmiras mitzvahs. Okay, so that's one road you can go down. So I'm saying I'm going to stop before I get too far ahead of myself. But so there is a philosophical idea there, and Allah comes along and says
some sort of natural progression away from the exact line.
Right.
So it's not really about this. It's just this is how Yidden operate.
Right.
I care about God, so I naturally move away.
But you're still going to walk dangerously close to how does this acquire an actual halachic status. I mean, you're talking about a new category.
Right, who said there is a halachic status?
So Yaakov just made a segue. So maybe you'll say the reason why you'll think that there's a halachic significance to it is because you see that Iyatar, you can't be matered. But one second, think about just 1 second. That's my point, though. My point is, but what do you mean? What does Iyatar Rashai really mean, though? In other words, that tells me that's not a positive thing, but rather what? What are they concerned about? Is there really?
Send it too far.
What? No. What are they concerned about? What are they concerned about?
That it'll become as if it's sister to you.
Okay, so we'll get to that. So let's go slowly. This is a very difficult and step by step. So it would seem like that it's not that there's any positive. There's not any positive idea to minhag. It's not that minhag is a kiyum or anything like that. Rather, once it comes about, once people are noheg a certain way, there's minhag contains the word behavior. Once people behave a certain way, we'll get to how they derived in a second. Once they behave a certain way, now we have a problem. Because if we undermine this behavior, this minhag, this could lead to an actual undermining of real halacha. So now we have a problem. That's the problem that Chazal are facing. We have these minhagim that emerge, okay? The minhagim, they're not tos, which we'll get to in a second. We'll define that in a second. But they're not tos. They recognize that this thing is mutter, but the noeg yisser, in and of itself, there's no kiyum there whatsoever. There's no kiyum. Okay, we'll get into later why there's no kiyum. There's no benefit to that. You don't tip your hat to them and say, good job, Hamon, for coming up with this minhag. Not at all. Rather, we have a problem. Now that they're knowing this way, what's going to happen if we tell them not to do this anymore? What will happen? They'll end up in a real halachic area becoming problematic. So really, it's not that minhag is a positive thing. Rather, there's a problem. There's a negative here.
Fear.
Exactly. We can't undermine it because if we undermine it, that'll lead to an unraveling of real halacha. That's what Chazal are facing with minhag. Okay? But 1 second. Step. So the next step is what's minhag tos versus this kind of minhag? What's the okay minhag versus minhag tos? So one approach is the following. Okay? I want to say that every minhag. Okay,
what question are you asking right now?
Question is, so that's the case. So why are we differentiating between minhag tos and not? Say anytime they're noeg a certain way, we should not be matir. But you see, if it's minhag tos, if they came to the minhag through an inappropriate way, they thought it was actually usher, then you have every right to matir it, right? So why is that the case? So I want to say as follows: there's really every minhag has two components to it. Okay, two components.
We think.
Oh yeah. The other question you have to answer is why does the chacham come along with the minhag, make it legit, where no one can matir it ever, right? Legit. In other words, when the chacham when the chacham does it, it seems to be something that's okay. It's not just simply negative. It's good.
What's going on?
Let's start with tos. Tos is where we're acting a certain way based on what?
We're saying this there's a mice that emerge from tos.
Right, but that's the whole point, though. In other words, if they do something, let's just be descriptive for a second, okay? If they develop this through a mistake, through ignorance, okay, meaning because the okay minhag is not through ignorance, the tos is through ignorance, meaning they think this thing is usher when we know it's mutter. All along they say, yeah, mafresh challah from orez, of course, challah is usher from orez for sure. That's what we think. So what is that telling you? So you see, you can always be matir. So what is that telling you?
That you're not worried about not matering it.
Well, remember. when you matcha something, right? What's the fear you have when you matcha something?
Oh, well, they already don't know the foundation.
Okay. Now we're talking.
Yeah,
so since they already don't know the whole, if they don't know the foundation of halacha to begin with, you can't say I'm worried about them being more over the foundation of halacha.
Right.
Because they don't know the basics to begin with.
How do you know they don't know the basics?
The very minhag itself,
It's not localized.
if the very minhag itself is a product of ignorance, so you can't tell them you're concerned that they're going to be further ignorant by undermining their ignorance.
They are
It's absurd.
already ignorant.
Exactly. They're already ignorant to begin with. The toast poisons the whole thing. It can never get off the ground. It's never minhag. It's simply a stupid thing that they're doing. So you can't be worried about matter it, of course, because the very fact that they're ignorant to begin with can't be a defense about further ignorance. That's impossible.
The very fact that they're ignorant
cannot be defense insofar as leading to further ignorance. Doesn't make. There's nothing to talk about with Taos, because Taos is ignorance leading to more ignorance. They don't know the very system of Chal to begin with. So you can't worry about undermining furthermore.
Okay, so why not?
One second. So now let's get to.
No, say it though. So why not?
1 second. But now we have the case of Hamon and Okay versus the Chacham. Now let's understand the Hamon and the Chacham. Let's be clear. This is one component of minhag. They both developed the minhag properly. Excuse me. The objective is exactly the same. Both the Hamon and the Chacham are both on the same page. The Hamon says, "Listen, we want to be noeg iser b'sanis mutter because we think it'll be an adherence to Shmiras mitzvos." And the Chacham can say the same thing. The Chacham has the right to come into the city and say, "Listen, I want you to be mafresh challah from Orez because I think it'll be a better adherence to system mitzvos." So there, they share the same thing, right? That component they share. What's the difference though between the Hamon and the Chacham? But the Chacham, it's true that the Chacham, we know from Tosfos, again, we're just starting with Tosfos, there's a lot more to do. Tosfos is saying the Chacham can make a minhag. All right? And it's not about Tosef.
And it's binding.
And it's binding. Why? Because the Chacham has, we'll get to the binding part in a second, but he can have the same objective as the Hamon. He could say, listen, I think this will improve the Hamon's adherence to mitzvos. He has the right to say that. But what gives it halachic clout? Okay?
His mechanism is opposed.
Thank you. It's because he gives hurrah. In other words, that's psak. There's his ability to give hurrah, right? Which, if you think about it,
which is instruction.
Instruction, correct. But halachic hurrah, instruction.
Torah?
No, that comes from his. In other words, where does that come from?
Where you saw it?
In other words, it's not because the same way. If he were in part of Sanhedrin, okay, let's say he were in Sanhedrin. Sanhedrin could do what? They can make zeros, right? Sanhedrin had the ability to make zeros, correct? So it's saying that, which means that Sanhedrin has the means to go ahead and create what? Halacha, right? He himself can't create halacha, right? Because he's not part of the great institution of Sanhedrin, but he is someone who can give psak and hara.
So because the difference, what's psak, what's hara, what's
hara means direction. It means that like you're. It's not psak means is a mutter or aser. Hara is like guidance, halachic guidance. Okay. So he's saying that's what it means. It's like
binding guidance.
But it's related to chiddush. Hara is related to chiddush. It's like a difference between saying the Shulchan Aruch says X versus saying, oh, in this situation, in this specific shaila, I'm giving you a heter. Right, exactly, right.
Okay,
so since he has since he has the right to do that, so that's what makes his institution of minhag different than Hamon. The Hamon don't tap into that system. They can't give hurrah. They're subject to hurrah.
No, they can give hurrah.
Tosfos' first step is to show you what the difference in minhag talos and regular minhag is. Minhag talos is where the people themselves are lacking they're so ignorant in the area itself. You're not worried about undermining it because you can't worry about undermining the consequence of ignorance when they're ignorant to begin with. 1 second. Then he says, what about the minhag talmid chacham? So that what I want to say is both the chacham and the Hamon. Both the Chacham and Hamon can share the same objective, but the question is, since the Chacham is someone who's imbued with the ability to give hurrah, so now his minhag takes on a different definition than the minhag of just the Hamon. It has a different quality to it. I don't know what that is yet, because we're not up to that yet.
You know, it's binding.
It's not. Why is it not bound? Prove to me it's not binding. To clarify the okay Hamon minhag, okay? What makes it different than the Chacham minhag? The Chacham minhag is a kiyum. All right, we'll get to that later on during the sugya how it's a kiyum, but it's a kiyum. It's a positive thing. But and forget how it's bound to people. But by the Hamon, it's not a positive thing. It's nice that the fact that their intention, that their hearts are in the right place, is very nice. But at the end of the day, it doesn't register as anything halachic. It doesn't. Simply, we're just afraid that if we undermine it, it'll lead them to undermine the fundamental stuff. But it doesn't mean there's any value to what they're doing. There's no halachic. The minhag of the Hamon does not register as a halachic minhag. The minhag of the Chacham registers as a halachic minhag. The minhag of Hamon is simply, we're afraid if we undermine it, what damage that would do. That's the framework of their minhag. We're concerned about the damage. Yosef's original way of learning, not the Chacham, this one. Rav Yosef's original way of learning was very good. Rav Yosef was saying Hamon
or Hamon.
That's it. You can't get into who cares Taos, not Taos.
Yeah, that's
Hamon,
he's
right? A Chacham can do it, but Hamon cannot register any of the halachic system. They can't.
So you can't.